Okay. Today is April 14th, 2019, and I'm doing a reading. So, yes, if you want to state your intentions and just speak closely so that you can, if you want to record it.
Sure, yeah. So it's the day before my birthday. It's my last day of 3 times 3 times 3. And so I'm entering a lot of Saturn energy and really stepping into my work on this planet. And so that whole energy intention of really stepping into myself. And an image or a little film came into mind of sort of a really fully embodying my body with my soul and letting any old limitations there just kind of blasting off like anime character style, and just intending that this insight is going to feed me so that in times of question that I'm reminded of what my being is here to create, and that these patterns that live in my hands and the patterns that live everywhere inside of me is a map way for me to understand my energetic patterns and to surrender into those and to trust those patterns and to allow those to empower me as I step into this next great 28 years of good work.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to tell you a little about the roadmap, the hand analysis. So, fingerprints are formed 5 months prior to your birth. So it's actually, they're imprinted on you before you're even out of the womb. And they're unchanging, meaning you have your fingerprints for the rest of this lifetime. And that's even, it's like there's no two snowflakes that are alike. There's no two people that are exactly alike. There's no two daisies that are exactly alike. There are no two fingerprints that are exactly alike. So it's a combination plus the type of fingerprint plus which finger it's on. And also, it could be on the palm or surface. A dermatoglyphic could be on the palm or surface. All kind of come together to form your soul's agenda. So what you came here to be and to do. And it's a state of consciousness that your soul craves to inhabit. So it's not like you have to become a doctor or a lawyer or this teacher, but it's a state of consciousness that's inhabited when you do those things. So it doesn't matter so much what you're doing as how it makes you feel when you're doing it. The other part of the reading is the personality agenda. So personality agendas in the line formations, the hand shape, and those are somewhat changing. So I've actually seen lines on people's hands where they've actually changed. I've seen fingers morph. I've seen hand shapes change, and that's all part of the personality. Personality is changeable. Whereas your soul psychology is here. This is what you came here to work on. It's going to be a process that you continue to work on for the rest of your life in this lifetime. And you're only just going to peel more and more layers, getting more in depth with it. And so the soul's agenda can only happen through the personality. The personality is what carries out the soul's agenda. And so always combine both of them. What is that?
This is a cardamom and orange cashew cream cup.
Oh, is it vegan?
Vegan, gluten-free, all organic except chocolate crust.
Oh, are you serious?
Mm-hmm. Want to try? Cheers, but.
Wow. Oh my god. Okay. Cool. Thank you. So, your hand shape is kind of interesting because I have your hairpins right here. Yeah, let's move that out of the. Okay. So you have kind of a combination. Right hand, you have there's elements of fire and earth, and we actually call that the worker bee. So these people they need to be working 24/7. They're kind of like the worker bees, the workaholics, out of all the archetypes of the hands. And usually it's interesting because retirement is something that's hard for them to comprehend. because it's just work. Their work is their life. Their happiness is their work. So it kind of just tells you this is like your basic aptitude. Left hand has a little more of fire and water, which is the soap opera. And so, yeah, so you have kind of a combination of almost all the hand types. The air doesn't show up in your hand, though. I'm not seeing air. But the fire, the earth, and the water are showing up. And so, the cool thing about the soap opera archetype is that these people are very, they're like the actors. They're the high energy people. People like to be entertained by these people. They're usually very charismatic and have that something about them. They're very fiery. The fiery part is like the very passion and the excitement. Doing one thing is not enough. It bores them, so they have to do 5 things or 10 things at once. And then the water part is like the intuitive, the more, the caring, kind of psychic stuff, more sensitive aspect. So you kind of have an interesting combination with those of the two, kind of the hand shapes. And you actually have, what kind of really struck me was, you have a type of fingerprint, and I'm going to start with the soul psychology first, just because I think it's kind of sticks out. You have a couple of dramatic glyphics in the hand. If you look right here, the moon area, which is down right here. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a teardrop, kind of like a composite. And there's one in the deep moon as well. And then
swirls?
Yeah. And so this is kind of a less than 1% of the population actually has those.
Wow.
You could probably have mine.
Yeah.
Because it's too sweet, it'll probably make me like, yeah. But thank you for sharing. So dramatic glyphics happen less than 1% of the population. And you also have stuff going on kind of in the upper part of the hand as well. And those are kind of even more in common. And then right here, if you look at the Venus part of the hand, I just want to show you these because...
Please.
Yeah, because they're really not very common. I mean, this is more 3% of the population has this type of dramatic glyphic in the Venus area. That's in your left hand.
Right, this piece right here?
Uh-huh, yeah. So talking about the overall theme of your hand, you have all whorls. Composites, so you have a composite that's it's a type of a whorl, but it's a lower ranking whorl. And when you have all composites, your theme of your life is school of service. So it's kind of, this is a huge thing because there's not going to be one incident, in your life that doesn't revolve around service. Knowing when to do for others and when not to do for others. On one extreme, it's the selfless, you're martyring, you're sacrificing yourself, doing everything for everyone, putting everyone ahead of yourself. Not knowing when to say no to people. Yep. And on the other extreme, that's when it goes. And usually people bounce back and forth. They'll usually spend, it's like 80% of the population will spend 80% of their time in the selflessness aspect of this. And they're just, over-sacrificing themselves. And then there's 20% that will be on the selfish end. Like, I'm not doing anything for anyone but myself. But you'll find, that actually being of service is what really makes you happy. It's when you feel like you're contributing, that you're helping make the world or someone else's world a better place. That's what's going to help you feel like you are, bringing in soul fulfillment points. So, the thing to ask is, do they want you to do it? So your neighbor wants you to help them move on Saturday. Would it take away from you working on your own stuff, from your self-care stuff, your own project, your life purpose? Or is it something that you feel compelled to help out? So is it good for them? Is it good for you? And do you want to do it? And then the fourth question would be, why? There was one woman who she had a friend who was constantly asking her to do things, and she finally said, no, I can't do that because it's taking away from my own work. And then the friend was very upset and said, well, I've been going to all your events and stuff like that. And so the thing was, because the friend was, sacrificing herself, the friend expected her to sacrifice herself as well, when that's not the case. If you're in school of service, the barometer is knowing when to do for others and when not to do for others. How does it make you feel when someone asks you to do something for them? You're in school service, so it's gonna revolve around this. And it's non-circumstantial, meaning no matter what happens, it's going to be at the center, kind of a theme of your life. And it's going to play into your life purpose as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, service, and so it's all on a spectrum of, over, doing for others, and then under doing for others. So, you're free to say yes or no to requests. That's the thing is, we're brought up to thinking that like we have to self-sacrifice and we have to please everyone. But if we do that all the time, you're gonna be focused on other people. Then you're not gonna focus on living your own life purpose, and then you're gonna become resentful.
Yeah.
And then you're not gonna be happy. So, service, being in the school of service, and so your life purpose. This is kind of a dual life purpose. That's just kind of like a triple life purpose, just because. Yeah, because it's kind of like three things tied together. The first one is a combination of both Apollo fingers plus the right Mercury finger. So Apollo's all about kind of individualist artists in the spotlight, expressing yourself, being able to pour yourself out on your canvas of choice and be able to stand back and be like, yes, that expresses me. And it's not limited to art or painting. There's a guy who does Model T cars. There's a guy who does sushi. That's anything where you're able to create something and stand back and feel like it truly expressed your inner essence is what the key is for this life purpose. And
which finger, Apollo?
So Apollo, fourth finger. Yeah, you're Apollo dominant. Apollo and right Mercury actually. And then the Mercury has to do with message. Being egoless enough that you can go inside and really tune into what your message is for the masses. And this is not a life purpose that, like, some people think, oh, well, I write emails or I have a presence on social media and, I interact with people that way. Not exactly. You are meant to have a message where you've lived through your own experiences, like you have your own experiences that you've experienced and you have your very personal message and you have to bring that to the very impersonal public. So part of the artist message, so it's like, I called it like artist individualist with a message in the spotlight, charismatic presentation, because it has to do with, spending time creating something, tuning into your message, creating whatever it is that really truly expresses your inner world, and then sharing it with the masses. You can't just do it on your own and write in a journal and not show it to the world. The other half of it is that it has to be seen. This is a very out there in the world. And plus you have what we'll call a know-it-all thumb. So, you have access to a lot of kind of ancient wisdom, a lot of stuff that I almost link it to, because there's 4 different schools in hand analysis. There's school of service, school of love, school of peace, school of wisdom. I almost link it to school of wisdom because it's like you guys are kind of like the wise elders of the group. So like the know-it-all thumb is kind of like that. It's where it's like the wise elder. And, on the good side, so there's always, good news and bad news with everything. Nothing is like, like the guy I read last night, he's like, oh, that's a bad thing. I'm like, no, it's not quite like that. It depends on how you harness that energy. Because this is how you're wired. It's not saying like you're doing this or, it's saying this is how you're wired. So your tendency is to do this.
And that's one of my thumbs, or?
Both of the thumbs.
Both of the thumbs. And is it the actual pattern on here?
It's a combination. It's a combination of both. But yeah, so know-it-all thumb. On the plus side, you have access to a lot of wisdom. You're probably the person that people seek out to, for certain knowledge and stuff like that. And on the flip side, it could be where you kind of insulate yourself with your knowledge. wisdom, or it will turn into not taking risks. It's like, okay, I know how this works. I don't need to actually put myself out there in the world. So you kind of insulate yourself with your wisdom, or feel like you need to take another class, read another book, or study a few more years before you put yourself out there. So watching that balance of when you're, feeling like, oh, I need to, when you need to insulate, protect yourself with your wisdom versus, being that conduit for people, where you can freely share information. Because you're meant to experience a lot of things in this lifetime. You came here this isn't a middle of the road type of hand analysis reading. I've done many of those. This is definitely someone who's extreme, kind of an extreme person. You have composites in the moon. So the thing about composites is they turn on and off based on your life lesson. The trickiest thing is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, you have 5 composites. The person I read last night had 8 composites. So in one instant, it could go from one thing to another, to the opposite extreme. And that makes it challenging. So it's like the remedy for that is, how do you catch yourself when it starts to change? So moon area is all about spirituality, imagination, intuition, and it's part of your life purpose and your life lesson. So it's actually spiritual teacher is the life purpose. Because it's a composite, it's called a rabbi with a ranch. Yeah. So what tends to happen with this rabbi with a ranch is that they tend to, the owner of this dermatoglyphic, because it's in the palm, your life purpose is more in your palm rather than the fingerprints, is that it becomes about, how can you, impart spiritual knowledge on people. And also, it's like there's a part of you that wants to have that materialistic, like the stuff, right? But then there's a part of you that's supposed to, like, because of the spiritual teacher aesthetic, you're supposed to, live like a monk. You're not supposed to enjoy in the material stuff. So there's this kind of dualistic thing going on. How can you live a spiritual life, but also, let it be okay. Be this big energy person, right? Because your hands, I would say, are more of someone who's very out there in the spotlight. And when you think of spiritual teacher, you think of someone who's like more kind of introverted and more kind of like isolated in the world. So it's permission. How do you allow yourself to be this big energy and be a spiritual teacher and be able to have this material stuff? And that could mean money, right? Stuff, a house, abundance. So it's rabbi with a ranch. It's like, how can you, have the chop wood, carry water, but also have the nice mansion in the woods, kind of a thing.
Yeah, totally.
And just the combination of having, all worlds. This is kind of an unusual thing, because when someone has all the same type of fingerprint, it like further intensifies whatever type of fingerprint it is. So it's another name for this one is also lone tree on the plain. So I wrote down, it's kind of going in and out of self-indulgence, finding your service. It's about you're about, having a service-based life. And it's knowing, when to do for others, when to do for yourself. But you have to fully explore the selfish side and the selfless side. You have come here to really explore what is it like to really know every increment on the, on the spectrum of indulging in both sides. I mean, you didn't come here to live a middle of the road life. This is because. So I'm writing, so it's like joyous, selfless service. So you must first immerse yourself in complete selfishness, and then ultimate fulfillment can only come from service that comes from your inner being, as opposed to doing good deeds, like the expected good deeds. Oh, because I'm a spiritual teacher, because I'm seen as this, imparting of this wisdom, I should do this. It's more, it has to really come from within. So it's a service that where you feel like you want to serve and you are truly helping others. But it has to be more from your side. Like whatever you're doing, it has to come from you. So I wrote, so there's no conflict between what you truly want to do and doing service for others. When there's no conflict between that, between what you truly want to do and doing service for others, that's kind of the high point of this life path. And that's like basically like enlightenment, any career. So it's not what you're doing, but it's the consciousness inhabited. It's so basically any career could be considered fulfillment of this life purpose. So when what you truly want to do matches the service that you're doing for others, is going to be key. Okay, and then remember I told you about the composites because they kind of turn on and off. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky because composites, you have, let's see, what were they on? Right, so thumb. So thumb has to do with results. So on one extreme, it's like feast, famine, that's the name for that composite, okay? So it's like you could be, creating a lot of projects, completing things, a lot of abundance, and then in another moment, famine. That means no money's coming in, projects aren't getting completed, you're stopping short of success, you're getting, working with the wrong people, flakes and stuff like that. The other one is left thumb. Okay, so left thumb is kind of like relationships, self-care. So a lot of people that have this, what they've told me is they'll sometimes walk into a room and they'll feel like everyone in the room, they kind of feel that kind of energy of like everyone, almost like everyone's against them or something. They've had that. But basically, what did I write down? Left thumb, so divided loyalties, closeness, distances. So like being close to people, being distant towards people, and self-care. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you, putting yourself first? Making sure that gets taken care of. So divided loyalties with the family and friends. So it could show up as being very close, and then suddenly, where it's like enemies, or very distant and very detached. Very, very close, very in love, and then, in resistance. So this is like relationships and family.
And what about like what is that? Just like, what does that say about me?
So this is how you're wired. So, this is kind of like be on the lookout for when this does happen, you can kind of catch it. So the whole thing about hand analysis is, awareness is going to make it so it's not so automatically happening.
Totally.
The more you can kind of catch when this starts to happen. I mean, we all have life purposes. We all have life lessons. Some people have composites. Some people have more than composites than others.
And composites is this on-off kind of duality thing.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm asking is what about that certain characteristic? Like, what am I supposed to, like, what is
right?
What am I supposed to learn from it?
Okay, yeah. So when it's happening, that's when you ask yourself, oh, okay, instead of like, because when you're in that zone, you can't really function.
Yeah.
So having some sort of emergency thing that you have, like it's like a safety thing. It's almost like a kind of like a care package, I guess. But like, what are some remedies that I can take when I'm in this? When my life lesson is like taking over. When I'm starting to feel that like things are, success failure. It's like not, it's more on the failure side. So remedies could include, part of this is because of the spiritual, the teacher, the rabbi of the ranch, is you're kind of meant to grapple with the dark, deep emotions, the isolation, the stagnation, the alienation. You're meant to grapple with some deep stuff. Otherwise, we wouldn't give you spiritual teacher, rabbi with the ranch, life purpose. we wouldn't just trust anyone as a spiritual teacher if they haven't really lost themselves and found themselves. So you have to like go through that grappling process to really come out. It's kind of like like your comeuppance, you know. It's like the experience that's needed, you know, to kind of grapple something, really inhabit something that's, you know, down in the deep depths of emotion, the depression. Okay, that's part of it. And people don't want to be there because it's not fun. But it's funny because it's like, you spiritual teachers are less than 1% of the population, but seriously, I would say like 8 out of 10 readings that I get are like spiritual teacher people.
Wow.
It's interesting, right? The people that are attracted to what I do. So it's like, not all of them is their life purpose. Some of them are their life lesson, but it's kind of, it makes sense that more spiritual teachers would be looking for answers. It's like, you know, the world is God's message board or the universe's message board. You're here to kind of pick up on clues.
Right.
But yeah, it's like a stepping grounds. It's like a way for you to kind of really find yourself. I bet some of the best work you've done has been when you've been down in the depths, you know, in the dark depths of emotional, you know, in the underworld. I bet some of your deepest realizations have come out from being there.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, it's just pulling myself out of it and learning that I don't have to live there. But yeah, all of it, I have trained myself to say, what am I getting from this? What is this lesson teaching me? What does that mean I have to change about my life, you know? So that I don't stay there.
Right, good.
And sometimes I have to sustain being in that feeling while I do that work, but I just keep going forward. You know, like right now I'm being very, I was undisciplined with my time because I was giving too much time to my new partner.
Oh,
you know, this giving, but he's super wonderful. So I was able to be like, okay, it's not him personally, but I'm sacrificing my
school
own
service, yeah,
service.
Yeah, and that's gonna show up everywhere. You know, where you're gonna, that's gonna come out. So that's good. You're catching yourself. I mean, you're also you have murderer's thumbs and you have a simian line on your right hand. Yeah.
It's almost right.
Let me see.
He barely skips it.
I would count it. Okay, so you're simian-ish. Simian-ish. So it's like, these are the wirings of the hand. It's like, this is like your brain made a connection. Okay, maybe it's a little bit, you know, not fully connected. It's simian-ish enough though. Murderous thumbs is actually more, kind of trumps the simian line though. Because murderous thumbs are kind of relentless, like, I'm going to do this no matter what, nothing's getting in the way. Whereas the simian line is kind of has that like ferocious, kind of fierce dedication to a task at hand. And it's like, you know, Jacques Cousteau was all about the oceans, you know, and voyaging on the seas. He wasn't like about family and kids. Right? He was about the oceans. That was his thing. Relationships weren't his thing. It wasn't his primary thing. And in this case, you know, it's like, yeah, your spiritual message, you expressing yourself in the spotlight, it has to be kind of forefront. And actually it's going to help your relationships if you put yourself out there, do life purpose, spiritual work ahead of the relationship. That would actually help your relationship. Let's see. Said you had a whirl on. Let me just check. What do you do? Yeah. So I mean, I'm gonna bring in the other parts of the life purpose. You know, because Jupiter, Saturn, and Apollo are all very strong, and also Mercury. But it has to do with leadership, you know, calling the shots. You are meant to kind of be in the Zeus chair, you know, with the lightning bolts. You know, Zeus was the king of gods, he was kind of in his throne. So you're a definite Jupiter type. So having your leadership, having some sort of way where you're able to, say what you want, and you need to do that. That's like, and there's people that like want to be directed, so permission to yourself to do that, because you have a lot of big energy. It's like this permission of like, oh, but if I'm doing the spiritual thing, I can't really be this big energy and this big charismatic energy that, because you're going to be drawing a lot of energy to you. It's, soap opera people, you guys are some of the most interesting people to be around. It's like fire and water. So,
what about my hand? What's the water element of it? Like, what defines it as?
Yeah, it's more just like the lines, the type of lines and the kind of the shape. Your hand, it's more, fire and earth are kind of more prevalent, but there's a little bit of water in there. So it's definitely an important thing for you. The thing that's like, that's kind of, I see the air element maybe is not being expressed as much as the other elements. But I mean, you have a lot of the kind of like the air is more of like the wisdom and the kind of intellectual stuff, and that kind of comes with more of the thumb. Okay, so where was I? Oh, okay. I was talking about composites. I just want to make sure I cover them all because it's important to kind of know. Saturn. Let's see. Composite. Okay, so you had composites on both left thumb, left Jupiter, and also left Saturn. So I talked about thumb, kind of the divided loyalties, and then left Jupiter is like clear. So the plus side is like super clear wants. On the flip side, it's unclear wants. So we call it in love with a married man or woman, passion, confusion. I read someone also that had this composite on their Jupiter finger, and they were open relationship. That was kind of their thing. And I think you kind of were, or I don't know if you are, but...
Not right now.
Not right now. Okay. So, it could show up as, being in a relationship with someone who's unavailable, boundary issues, not knowing, part of it with the other person I read was that being with someone that was married, being with someone that was always unavailable, she didn't have to really be vulnerable around him because it's like she only got to know him so much, which was kind of like part of the survival mechanism. And then passion and confusion, did I really want that 10th ice cream cone, or did I just get it because, did I really need, 20 purses, so sometimes they can kind of overindulge in like figuring out what they're passionate about. And so the flip side, kind of, really clear what they want, this is exactly what I want versus like, okay, I don't know what I want and I'm just going to want what everyone else wants, or just kind of be numb to their wants. Okay, are you breathing?
Well, I'm trying to work it out, see how, I'm just thinking about where that lives inside of me,
Right. Well, so think about it this way. This is how you're wired, and, you're going to get this reading. You can listen to it in the future and stuff, but you're going to become more aware of it, and when you're more aware of it, it's going to have less of a negative control over you. It's going to be less in the driver's seat the more you're aware of it.
Totally.
Okay. And then the last one I want to talk about is the composite on the left Saturn finger. So this is a Billie Holiday, Billie Holiday, the singer. So I'm good, I'm bad, people love me, people hate me, I'm talented, I'm untalented. So it's kind of has to do with self-worth.
Yeah,
Extremes.
That's me all the time.
Okay.
All the time. I'll think I'm totally worthless, and then I'm like, boom! Like, I know I'm a rabbi with a ranch. Like, I know these things, And then I'll fall into I'm nothing. I have no worth. Everybody else has a life. I don't deserve life.
Okay. Wow. So that's a left Saturn. That's guilt. That's self-worth.
So So that's always flipping from one.
That's going to be flipping from, yeah, and that's just the nature of these fingerprints, of these exact fingerprints, these composites, is that they turn on and off. And it's going to be, I mean, there's going to be ways where you can start to catch it, more, but, that's the nature of composites, is that they can go from one extreme to another just
And
very
what
quickly.
what makes it composite? And are all my fingerprints?
No, not all of them. Like, that's a composite right there.
Oh, and it kind of goes like a yin-yang?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of them are mixed, though. Like, I read another person it looks like a composite, but it's actually a mixture. So fingerprints are not always clean. They're kind of messy. They kind of, sometimes there's 2 types of fingerprints. Sometimes there's 3 types of fingerprints trying to be together. Sometimes it's a gamut, and it's completely unidentifiable. In this case, yours are composite-y, with some tinted archness. So that's what that school of wisdom, I brought that in there. Okay, so
It's going to be, yeah.
okay. No, I did see you have a Star of Apollo.
It's going to be like,
Yeah, so any sort of stars in the hand are kind of an explosion point. Yeah, so anything Apollo, so remember Apollo has to do with spotlight, right? So when you have a star, it's a bit of a messy star, so meaning it's not fully clear. When I see a really clean star, it's like, okay, the hand is screaming at me. Okay, this is a little bit of a messy star, so it's like it wants to be the Star of Apollo. So basically, Stars of Apollo is fame, fortune, and the arts. Okay, there was a famous psychic, not a famous, but a well-known psychic in Las Vegas that had this, and she's like, I'm not artistic. Well, it's when you're a psychic in Las Vegas and you're doing talks in front of people, that counts as fame and fortune in the arts, because you're expressing yourself, you're saying what your message is, your spiritual message. So she had the same thing as you. So fame, fortune, in the arts, maximum creativity, big spotlight. And so the obstacle is tomato fear, or lack of discipline. Okay, so those are common obstacles where you just stop short of success or don't follow through, don't go all the way. And then the penalty phase, so if you're not using this, so any sort of gift marker, there's always a penalty. There's a penalty for Simeon as well. But the penalty for the Apollo star is feeling like you don't belong, or apathetic, just like, I don't care. So when you start to feel those things, that means, okay, where are you not putting yourself out there in the world more? Do you have some sort of stage that you're currently expressing yourself on?
I'm working on several stages, and I think that's also why I actually had a dark moment yesterday where I had to come to terms with the fact that I need to be way more disciplined, because I'm working on these several stages, and they kind of weave together, and I'm trying to work all of them at the same time, and I can't leave any of them out, because the 5 things at once thing, I've got like a shop, so there's several elements, and they all weave together, with I've got like a clothing and jewelry store thing, but then I also eventually want to do, I can't help it, I want to do music videos, and those music videos will also be educating people on the different things, so, and then it'll be situated in the city, because I want to make the cities more beautiful, and I want to make them more human friendly and less car dependent, so they all integrate into each other, and I'm at this precipice of actually finally starting my business and starting a nonprofit, and it's like all of it's right finally, and I've been waiting years and years and years of denying myself, being of service to others and totally forgetting myself, but finally, like, that pressure of that star is going, no, it's time, like, you have to be seen, like, it's not about, you can't hide anymore in serving others, like, it has to come out.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah, and the Simeon line is the same thing, and the murder's thumb with the know-it-all thumb. So there's a lot of potential that's here, and it's like, can you tap into this energy? The Simeon line is all about, where you lose yourself, you'll go till 4 a.m. working on the project or something. It's like, and they kind of have like the blindfolders on. So you kind of forget. Like, the thing is, like, relationships can suffer because of the simian line. You're not a pure simian line, but you're simian-ish. So it's like the penalty is the black box communication because, you know, it's like a supercomputer brain. So it's like you're kind of going at like 10 steps ahead of everyone else. So it's like other people have a hard time keeping up with you.
Totally.
So it's like, how can you break it down so that you don't lose people? Because
Right.
also you're going to be very demanding and expecting from a lot of people. So as a boss, if you were a boss, you have to be aware of this because there's some things that make you very, very capable of running your own business. But if you were to have people working for you, there's going to be a part of you that's going to feel very like, why aren't people working fast as me? Why are they not able to keep up with me? And you have to realize that you are one of those people that's going to be 10 steps ahead of everyone else, and you're going to be working like twice as fast at least than everyone else. And so, yeah, it's a supercomputer brain, basically.
That's a simian line?
Yeah, you're simian-ish. So, but I would say with your murder thumbs, you know, it's like a relentlessness. So, you know, the plus side of this is, yeah, you're totally capable of doing all these things. The flip side of it is that it could show up as, you know, feeling like no one's able to keep up with you, or, you know, you feel like you know everything and everyone else is just dumb. They're not able to keep up, right? So that's what you have to watch out for, because there's a lot where it can make other people feel like they're just not capable, or they're dumb, or they're not as able as you are. But you have to realize that you're one of the top few that has these qualities, that has these gifts. So, you know, be nice to people when they can't keep up. Right?
Totally.
Okay. Let me see where we're at. Okay. All right. So, yeah, so I covered that. Star of Apollo. So the first thing, yeah, when you start to feel apathetic, when you start to feel you don't belong, usually it's the Star of Apollo, where you need to put yourself out there more. And having more gifts doesn't mean it's better or worse. It means you have to be more specific with your life purpose. Okay, Rabbi on the Ranch, you got to have this spiritual practice, spiritual teacher practice, and also make room for this big energy of having your material goods, being able to be abundant material-wise, and having this big energy and putting yourself out there on the stage with your very personal message out to the impersonal public. And you have to like center your life around that. I feel like if your hand is so specific to this, it's like if you're trying to do something that's below you, it's just you're gonna be ending up in servitude, where you're just, you know, working below what you're capable of. Yeah, or you're sacrificing your time, working jobs that you don't want to work, or helping others that, you know, is taking away from your own time. And it's not that you don't, you know, want to help them, or, you know, but you're serving the person in the way they need to be served. You know, maybe they need to figure out another person to get help from or something. You have a really strong line of communications, kind of like an intuitive, both of this. It's a Mercury line. This is a very strong Mercury line. So kind of like a phone call.
Right?
Yeah, it's like a phone call direct with God, on the phone with God. So, I mean, you're getting good direct communication. Yeah, so just to kind of summarize, you know, the biggest challenge with your hand is going to be the school of service. Sacrifice, selflessness versus selfishness, knowing when to do for others and when not to do for others. I mean, that's going to be kind of at the center of this, because you're not going to feel compelled to help anyone unless you feel what you're doing is really important to you.
So sorry to interrupt. Just want to let you all know we're closing in about 15 minutes, so we're doing
Okay.
the last call. Is there anything else that I can get you from the back of the kitchen?
I'm good. No, thank you. It's been great.
No, fantastic. I'll drop it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so the independence of thought, you know, can you say no to other people? Can you say yes? Because basically saying no to other people, you're saying yes to yourself. And you might lose people, lose friends, lose family that way by saying more no to people, but you're serving yourself more and you're going to be happier as a result because you're going to make more time for yourself. Yeah, rabbi with a ranch, combining the spiritual, the chop wood, carry water with the, I can have a ranch. I can have a ranch meaning you can have a material house. You can have stuff. You can make a lot of money. You don't need to fit this image of the monk, with no stuff, right? Where they've let go of everything. So...
It's exactly what I finally accepted for so many years because I naturally, from astrology, Taurus moon, I just attract the 6 of diamonds. I attract beautiful material things to me, high quality things, and I'm constantly spreading it on my friends, just pimping them out. And with this whole minimalist movement, I've been energetically shamed for having all this material.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah, especially being in the New Age communities, because it's all let go of material, blah blah blah.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not wearing Gucci, honey.
Right.
I'm not trying to prove how much money
Right.
I'm just looking for things of quality that embody the sacred,
Yeah.
and embodying the sacred within this physical realm.
Right.
And
Well, that's part of your life purpose, is you're meant to define that for yourself. So you don't have to fit that stereotype of the spiritual teacher as having nothing and, starving yourself for 45 days.
Right.
You are like the modern spiritualist teacher who can show people that they can have material stuff and it's okay. They don't have to be judged or shamed. So that's your life purpose. Okay, and the composite's going to make it challenging because you're going to feel like, one extreme to the next, with especially the thumb, closeness, relationships, and family, distance, divided loyalties, right? People are going to, and then the Saturn, I'm good, I'm bad, people love me, people hate me. That's the self-worth one that's going to go up and down, especially. And then the Jupiter... unclear wants. Okay, should I want this or should I not want this? Because as the label spiritual teacher, I'm not supposed to. So it's you have to define that for yourself. But Rabbi with a ranch is very clear that you're meant to have both. So yeah. So any other questions? It's a lot of information.
But it all makes perfect sense, honestly. Being able to ground in that really helps me wrap it up. Everything from this deeply personal message of having to dive fully into myself and express that as my spiritual message to people, but it's extremely personal.
Right.
And fully taking my story seriously and understanding that the message that I have for people comes from fully honoring all of what I experienced, all of this composite, all of these highs and these lows, and understanding that I can reach everybody through experiencing this spectrum, and that I can relate to people, and just I guess I'm just speaking out, honoring because I do. I don't think I'm bipolar, but this explains
the composites are on off. Yeah, the composites are very extreme.
So. And I was semi diagnosed with bipolar 2 because I'm not ripping my clothes off and going on the streets. I'm not major manic or depressive, but I do have this swing.
This on off. Okay. Composites will do that. In fact, I read another person he was diagnosed with bipolar and he had a lot of composites. So it's a very extreme on off, cold hot.
Totally.
So that's. When you're unaware of it, it's unmanageable, but when you're kind of more aware of it, it's going to help you kind of be catching yourself. Okay, there's the composites flipping on and off. So that's, that's part of it. That's interesting, though. You're the second person to say that. But yeah, there is actually in the medical field, because composites are so because actually my teacher, he also studied the health, the fingerprints of people in the medical profession. So people with composites, with high numbers of composites, did have schizophrenia and bipolar tendencies. But it makes sense because it's the on-off thing. So, but the medical profession sees it as this on-off, whereas in hand analysis, it's more of okay, work on your life lesson. This is kind of part of what you're supposed to happen.
That's why I never went to a psychologist anymore. It's like, that's why I went to astrology and this kind of stuff, because, instead of going like, oh, something's wrong with me, it's like, no, we're just these planets.
Right,
And if we embrace them and understand them and have compassion for ourselves,
right.
don't compare ourselves to, quote, normal, then I can see my dark depths as like,
Oh,
okay,
yeah,
this is
yeah.
something I can harvest from.
Right.
It's something that I'm naturally meant to do.
Right. I mean, this is you big energy in this hand, so it's like I can see where you're grappling with the energy of like, putting yourself out there, but also the kind of the inner world, kind of. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in these handprints. So, I mean, you could. I'm saying like you could read these hands for like 8 hours. There's a lot of stuff in there, but I want to just give you just enough so you know what you are about, what your life purpose is, what your life lessons, what the composites are going to do, and like the overall your gift markers of the hand. You know, the Star of Apollo and the Simeon line and the Know-It-All thumb. So, yeah.
Any like classic stuff like how many kids I'm gonna have?
So hand analysis is non-predictive. I should have a disclaimer. So no, but it's interesting. Because another woman asked me, and I was like, I need to make a disclaimer and everything because it won't tell you who you're gonna marry or how many kids you're gonna have, but it tells you this is how this is your brain mapped out on your hand. So it doesn't tell you what you're doing, but it tells you are wired to do this. So. All right, so
No, I just worker bee and soap
opera.
I'm a bee.
Okay, yeah. So these are my notes, so they might not make sense. So you have to do this with the reading when you listen to it. Just like look at the notes because I kind of I try to make it cohesive, but some people are like, oh, I don't know what you mean by that. But you'll just listen to the thing. All right, so we'll call that a reading.
Thanks, Fiona.
All right, so I'm going to continue the last part of the reading that I forgot to mention. So we have like an arch. Actually, let me get the paper fast.
Yes.
An arch in the Venus part of the hand. The Venus part of the hand is all about like the senses. We call wine, women, and song. It's just like you're into fine things. You're into stuff. It kind of goes along with the rabbi of the ranch is like stuff. It's like fine wines, fine cigars, fine music. Like Kiva makes total sense because it's like you're exploring your senses.
And you said wine, women, and song?
That's the general what it's called. Because mostly it's seen in more men.
Interesting.
So you usually you see, and so when it's also part of the life lesson. So being able to kind of learn more about your sensual side in a way where, and it can include sexuality, but learning how to express it in a way where it feels true to you. So in one extreme, it can show up as like overly indulging in the senses, where it just becomes kind of like a hedonistic lifestyle. I guess like one person I read, he was like a porn star. He was like he did that type of work, not a DACA, but he did like ideas. So he was a very sensual person, and exploring where does that feel right, learning about your sensuality in a way that's authentic to yourself.
Totally. Right, not overindulging.
Not overindulging, or making it, sometimes it can be like the 10 gold chains, like over display your sensuality, your sexuality. And that's part of the learning is you're meant to kind of do everything on the extreme. And then the other side of that is like, holding your sensual energy. Like, so, the tendency is to overdo it though, with just in general from what I've read, from just like the readings that I've done with this, is they tend to.
What's the Venus part of it?
So this is the Venus part of the hand.
Is it on both sides?
It's on one side, from what I remember. Yeah. So it's part of the life lesson. So just exploring your sensuality in a way that's authentic, in a way that's authentic, in a way that where you're enjoying your sensual energy. You're not doing it for anyone else, but it's, you can have your sensual energy. It doesn't need to be, like when you're running that Kundalini energy. The one guy that I was talking to, he's like, oh, I just get so turned on, and like I'd have to have sex like right away, or I have to like call someone up.
Wow.
So that was the level of sensual energy that he had. So
It gets expressed in like things, like all
yeah,
the beautiful things, or I'll overeat something delicious.
So that's good that you're channeling that energy. Yeah, no, that's really good that you're channeling that energy, and it also can show up in relationships. It can show up as like a codependency, manipulation, or what's the third one? Codependency, manipulation, or abandonment issues. So it can show up in relationship stuff too.
Yeah, I've worked through a lot of that.
Okay.
So that all sounds.
Yeah. So just be aware of that. The Venus, Wine, Women, and Song is the name of it.
And what exactly is it? It's like some sort of bump?
Yeah, it's a dermatoglyphic. You have dermatoglyphics all over your hands, in fact, and it's kind of like uncommon. So I was like, I want to save your prints because I kind of want to show my teacher just to see what they think of the extra dermatoglyphics.
And what are dramatic lithics?
Yeah, so it's like fingerprints. It's like the fingerprints is like the scientific part of it. Science, dramatic lithics. We think of like fingerprints, and then palmistry is like the ancient wisdom, palmistry. So hand analysis combines both of those. So it's just like fingerprints kind of in the palm part of the hand.
Yeah. When you show this to your teacher, will you relay back to me?
Yeah.
And I'll
they
throw you
usually
more magic.
confirm, or they'll like,
Refine.
refine what I have to say. But my teacher's the one that's like, you should be charging $150. She's like, I charge $350. But I'm like, I want this to be accessible by people, because I want to, do more readings. I want to, that's how you don't start your business by charging $1 bazillion.
Right. And you can also do it, by individual, like if you're different value with people who are just like,
oh yeah,
and they're just like, oh, what's the price? If you get like some sweet hippie who's like,
right, yeah.
Stones,
Why do you trades? That's the thing. Is like the whole thing with like trades is because like I like what you do. Like I want to support your stuff. So and like Brian, I love his massages. So I was
totally.
like, yeah. So hopefully I see him tonight. Okay,
Definitely.
that was the last part of the reading.
Thank you.